Welcome to the Horror Hangout, a podcast where film fans watch the best and worst horror movies of all time and talk about them. Today's episode is a little bit different from the usual format. It's a bonus episode chatting to a director of one of the films premiering at FrightFest Glasgow later this month. My name is Ben Errington, and I'm joined by Lynne Davison, the director of eerie folk horror film Mandrake, which has its world premiere at FrightFest Glasgow on Saturday, the 12th of March. Welcome to the show, Lynne.
Thank you very much for having me.
No problem at all. I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing very well. All movie biz, it's all good for me.
Wonderful. So glad to hear it. So thanks very much for joining us. First of all, congratulations on Mandrake.
Thank you very much. I'm very proud of it.
You should be. So before we get started, here's a brief synopsis for the film. Probation officer Cathy Madden is given the task of rehabilitating notorious killer Bloody Mary Laidlaw back into society after 20 years of jail. Cathy has always believed that every client deserved a shot at redemption, but her beliefs are firmly tested when two children disappear near Mary's farm. Okay, so I guess we should jump off quickly then, Lynne, if we could just ask where you're from and what's your filmmaking background.
So I'm from Northern Ireland. Most people only know Belfast, so I'll say Belfast. I wanted to work in films since I was about 6 years old. I was allowed to watch so many films that I shouldn't have been allowed to watch. I was watching Alien and Aliens and T2 and Terminator and The Thing and Jaws and everything. And although they didn't traumatize me too heavily, they really did inspire me. And the bug for filmmaking really happened when I would get scared and my mum would tell me, "Do not worry, that there was a team of people behind the camera and it was all fun and games." And then when it came to the point that I was, deciding what I wanted to do with my life, it was just so clear. I was like, I want to make movies. I don't care what it takes. I'm just going to do it. So then I studied for about 5 years, and then I started to work as a camera assistant. My first few films that I worked on were some pretty low budget, dodgy horror films, which were really fun. I found the DVD for the first horror film I ever worked on the other day. It's called Red Mist, but it was great fun.
Wow. So you just wanted to become one of those members of the team who worked behind the scenes. Yeah.
Always with the goal to make my own films. I think it's always my goal to be James Cameron. But James Cameron, round about Terminator and T2, not now.
Not now with all the Avatar sequels. God, James, calm down.
I mean, for his sake, I really hope that they turn out really well. But yeah, it's just madness.
Yeah, that's insane. So no plans for Mandrake 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 at any point?
Well, we did discuss the possibility of a prequel because in some of the prop documents, we were able to write down kind of the crime scene, overview of what happened on that night with Mary, but when she was arrested. So we developed a really cool story. So we were talking about possibly doing that, but we'll see if we do well. If the audience want it, then we'll do it.
Of course, that sounds really interesting. I think this was your debut feature, which I was kind of surprised by, just from the technical aspect of the film itself. How was the experience of making it? Was the production of it affected at all by COVID-19 lockdowns and things like that?
Oh my goodness, yes, we were very affected. We were actually meant to shoot earlier in the year, but because of COVID, we then just developed the script a little bit more and then went in full throttle at the end of 2019. So we were shooting in the height of winter. The majority of our scenes are outside and knee deep in mud. And the house that we primarily shot in, it was a house that wasn't derelict, it was for sale, but there was no heating or anything in it. So we were all very cold and uncomfortable, but we had such a camaraderie between us. I always approach any avenue of work with somebody with respect, and I always want people's input on what we're doing, and people really got on board with what I was trying to do with the film and what I was trying to say. And I think a lot of people were really blown away by what we were able to achieve. It's a triumph of ingenuity that we were, up against everything, low budget and COVID, that we actually made a film. We were very fortunate because we had a threat of COVID one day on set, but we didn't get shut down once. Whereas a friend of mine who was making his debut feature at the same time was shut down about 3 times at least. And he kept praying that I would get shut down as well, so he wouldn't feel as bad. But I never did.
Wait, did you say he kept praying that you would get shut down as well?
Yeah.
If I'm going down, I'm taking everybody else down with me. That sort of attitude.
I would have done the same thing. I might have sabotaged him.
Got COVID and just ran headlong into the...
Yeah. Like a little outbreak monkey onto their set.
Yeah. Oh my God. That monkey. So sorry, getting slightly distracted. So what was that initial inspiration for Mandrake? How did folk horror, I guess both modern and classic folk horror, how did that shape the idea for the film? Because I kind of saw influences on the screen from both modern and classic folk horror.
I mean, I was raised on genre, you know, it was you know, every night was movie night in my house, and we loved genre pieces. But modern horror that I took great inspiration from was The Witch and Hereditary and Midsummer, and also the first season of True Detective was a big inspiration as well. But it all came about really. I was living in England for a short period of time, and then I came back to Northern Ireland, and I contacted the development executive at Northern Ireland Screen and said, I'm back. Is there anything that you think I might like that anybody's, you know, working on at the moment? And she said, yes, I have something. It's a horror. You love horror, don't you? I was like, yes, I do. So I was put in touch with the writer, and we went into that blind because the development executive had explained to me what the story was loosely. And so when Matt sent me the script, he basically just sent it to me and said, read it and we'll meet up. So when I met up with Matt, when we started to chat about it, something really beautiful happened. Whereas, you know, we realized that we wanted to make exactly the same film.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, I got everything he was trying to say, and, you know, it so much resonated with me, the themes of motherhood and fertility and, you know, reclaiming your motherhood and stereotypes. And we just find that we needed to work together. And then I contacted a friend of mine who I've always wanted to work with, who's our producer, Paul Kennedy, and told him he would really dig the film as well. And then the next time I spoke to him, he had optioned it. So it all happened really quickly for me and kind of steadily. But I must say that, you know, prior to that, there was about 10, 15 years of really slogging it out and networking and making shorts for nothing.
There we go. It has paid off. I was also going to ask, so the film, it feels very rooted in reality. Are there any parallels between real women and the characters of Cathy and or Mary, either of those two?
I think, you know, I became the guardian of my niece when I was 25. And, you know, the themes of motherhood and claiming motherhood, they were very close to my heart. So I was able to put a lot of myself into the dynamics of these two women who were very different mothers, and how almost it was a prize at the end of it to find yourself within that responsibility. And so, you know, I was able to inform it a lot from my personal experience, which is, you know, it's always handy. It's always much more genuine. You know, I feel like that comes across to the audience more than anything else. You mentioned about nature, you know, nature was just integral to the film. You know, I wanted the nature of the magic to be that Mary was exploiting what was around her. You know, it wasn't that there was this kind of separate thing, like this mystical thing that she could pull from. It was something that kind of came from the earth and from the ground, and she surrounded herself in it and embodied it. Because I've mentioned this a few times now, but I didn't want it to be not bashing the film, but the new Craft film, it was all sparkly magic.
Yeah, it was incredibly sparkly, wasn't it?
Yeah, I didn't want my magic to be sparkly. I wanted it to be soil and blood.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that does come across, I think, to the audience in terms of I mean, also talking about I guess myths and legends, because obviously there is a story throughout of a witch designed to scare children. Did you grow up with any stories like that of your own that perhaps would have influenced this in any way?
Well, growing up in Ireland, you're surrounded by these ghostly stories and monsters, and often every night I would be convinced that I was hearing a banshee outside my window because I've been told so many stories about a banshee. Um, but nothing, like, we were always taught there was a house at the bottom of my road, and it was derelict, and we were told that a witch lived in there, and we weren't to go into it. And my brother and I, scallywags that we would go into this house, of course. And what I now know was a badger's den seemed like a hole in the ground, like a hellmouth.
Oh God.
And so that was quite scary.
Yeah.
So I feel like all of this has been with me. I was a very kind of dark child. I feel like it's been with me for a long time, and it's wonderful to have the means to express it in a way that.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think you have to channel sort of those things that perhaps traumatized you, not massively, but sometimes in some way as a child, channel those things into your art as you become an adult.
It's a much more enjoyable form of therapy.
It is, and it's free. Well, for the most part, it's free.
Yeah, you're lucky you make money from it, so that's good.
Wow, I didn't think of it like that. There we go. I've got a question. This is from one of the other guys who host a podcast with me, Andy. He asked me, because he's seen the film as well. So he said, Deirdre Mullins in particular has some physically grueling scenes in the film. How did you set the scene on the shoot to help her pull these scenes off, and how does she cope with being in those particular situations?
Deirdre is an athlete. She loves, like, she rides motorcycles. She loves stage combat. Any opportunity. As soon as the stunt coordinator arrived on set, she was just, nothing else mattered other than what he was saying. She was just so invested in it. And when we were going through certain scenes, she said that she was overwhelmed at times by my references. There's a moment in the film, I don't actually think it made the cut, but I remember saying to her, I was like, very seriously, I was like, okay, this is your Trinity moment. This is Trinity at the beginning of the Matrix. You need to get yourself up. You need to get going. Otherwise you're going to die. And, she loved that. She just couldn't believe how many times I would just hit her with some cool.
Wow.
Later in the film, when she's carrying Jude Hill, or very famous Jude Hill now, I kept referencing Aliens. This is you carrying Newt. And I have to do it. I mean, he's a little bit big to be carried, but I was like, no, this needs to be in there.
You got to do it. You got to do it. So there's no bullet time while she was Trinity then at all.
Unfortunately not. Maybe next time. Maybe in the prequel.
Next time, yeah. I mean, I really believed her as a probation officer, especially in that first scene where she turns up. I was a bit like, I'm totally sold by this performance. I feel like if I was, not that I've done any time, but I feel like if I had and she turned up, I'd be like, oh God, here we go.
Again.
I guess my next question is, in an ideal world, how would you hope your audience would feel watching Mandrake, and what would you like to send them away with after they've seen the movie? I really wanted the audience to be unsettled by the film. I wanted it to challenge their sensibilities of, what these relationships are within our lives, and what people are capable of. I think one thing that was always important to me was that Mary wasn't the, mustache twirling villain. She is a complex human being. There's a lot of gray there. She knows what she's doing is wrong, but she has to do it. And, it mirrors nature in itself. Nature is beautiful and can be caring, but nature is brutal. And, she is almost a human representation of that for me. So I want people to walk away thinking, well, for one, what the fuck was that? And two, I mean, it's great to think that at any point walking out of the cinema, or
yeah, as long as it turns out to be a positive. I hope I don't end up on your terrible horror movie list.
Well, when I read that at the start, it tends to be like, it's the classic, like the absolute worst of the worst that we've covered before. But I was saying recently, we only seem to cover stuff that we like lately, so I think we've properly veered into the watching the best horror movies from now on. Almost everything you listed in terms of stuff you saw that you shouldn't have seen at the start, are like my favorites and stuff that I also saw at that sort of age as well. So I
Yeah, they're all my
completely
favorite
understand.
films now. Like
I
I
think
have my Thing T-shirt on in
yes,
honor of it. It's a really good.
amazing.
Yeah.
Gotta be the
But
best one.
yeah,
Sorry,
and I
just
think you have to carry your favorite films with you, and they inform everything you do. There's a particular moment later in my film, and my first AD he's a big horror fan as well, and we were trying to communicate everything very quickly, and somebody's found after doing something to themselves, and I was like, it's just like that moment in the Thing, and he's like, gotcha. And then he would be able to, so I had so many people on set that just knew exactly what I was talking about, and that's always what
yeah.
I'm looking for.
That's good, isn't it? Nothing's
Yeah.
worse when you explain something from one of your favorite movies and someone says, I've never seen it. And then
Yeah.
you go, I don't
Well,
know if we can be friends.
yeah, a lot of the time when someone tells me they haven't seen something that's so important to me and is so famous, I just wonder, how did you avoid it? Where were you? Like,
Yeah.
what were you doing?
What were you doing with your life?
Were you playing with toys like a normal child?
Making friends? What were you doing? I was just in a dark room, okay, just watching all of John Carpenter's best.
Yeah. I lived in the middle of nowhere, this was all you had to do.
I love the thought of every night in your house being movie night as well. That is something that
Yeah.
I think, is that something that you kind of proceed with in like now, and obviously far more busy
Well,
with
yeah,
making movies and stuff?
absolutely. I always watch something every evening. I've been playing a lot of Xbox recently, so right now I'm playing Outlast 2. So that's
Oh
kind of taking
God.
a bit of time.
How are you finding that? Because I love horror games, but that's one of the ones I almost feel like is too much.
Well, do you know, it hadn't actually frightened me until last night. And
Oh, okay.
I was like, suddenly something happened, and I and then that just made me want to play more.
It's just
super
feeling
grim. Yeah,
super grim, and you feel helpless because you can't really fight.
because you can't
Like,
fight or do anything, which is comparatively, because I play Assassin's Creed, comparing to that where you could kill everybody, it's I just have to cower and hide and run. But it's very good. The really unsettling thing about that game is that the lead character in it that you're searching for is called Lynne. So constantly everybody keeps saying Lynne, and all these horrible things are happening to Lynne apparently.
wow. Terrifying. Yeah, I don't think I've played the second one, only the first, I believe. Okay, so what is next for you? Have you got anything else lined up in terms of making another film? And have you learned? Is there anything particular you've learned from the process of making Mandrake that you would like to take forwards into your next project?
Well, there's a few things I've learned from it. One in particular is you got to make sure that you're working with the people that understand you and speak your language. We touched on that a moment ago, but like the producer that I worked with that I had known for years, he's like us. He loves all the same films, and you have a shorthand with people like that, and they really can fight your corner because they know what you're going for. So I think that's one of the fundamentals. Another would be to cut yourself a little bit of slack when it comes to how you present a scene, whether a scene can be consolidated maybe into one location, or just to make things a little bit easier on you. Like certain elements in the film, there's a point where there's a closed door and we can just hear violence behind the door. Initially in the script that was all on screen, but I thought it was much more haunting that we didn't see it. It's like the shark in Jaws, if you don't see it, it's much more terrifying. So I want to bring those elements into it a lot more with everything that I do. So currently I'm attached to a remake from a 90s horror film, which I'm not allowed to talk about any further than that.
Wow. How exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting. So that's kind of ticking in the background. It's pretty cool, pretty exciting.
See, all these questions just popped into my head then, but then you said I can't say anything, so I'm not even gonna.
Not allowed. Not yet, anyway.
I'm not gonna start guessing and then just gauging your reaction and going, "Wow, interesting."
But I also I went through script development with Northern Ireland Screen on a post-apocalyptic horror sci-fi that I've written, and
wow.
I optioned by Starchild Pictures, who did His House on Netflix. So
wow, yeah.
we are moving forward with that, and I'm extremely excited. It would be the most important project to me right now. It's very close to my heart. I did think it was actually going to be my first feature, but the stars didn't align on that one, and I think for the best. I wanted more experience to get it right, and also I want a bigger budget to get it right. So
it was obviously meant to be then. If that's the case, the stars didn't align then, but now they seem to be aligning for you at this point. So very exciting. I guess finally, I'd just like to ask, where can our listeners find more from you or keep up to date with any of these new projects?
Well, I have a public profile on Instagram, and I also, you can check out my website, which is just lynnedavison.org. But you'll hear from me again. I'll be back.
Wonderful. I'm sure about it. We'll put all the links to those websites in the show notes as well. So if you're listening and you'd like to find out more, then please do that. So thanks very much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, become a patron over at patreon.com/horror hangout. Thanks to Kovac Kauman for our theme music. Thanks to Acast for hosting the show. And thanks, of course, very much to you, Lynne Davison. It's been great.
Thank you very much. It's been great fun.
Wonderful. Okay. See ya.